Alright, let's start with the elephant in the room. I haven't done anything on the body lately. Got a couple new things that came in since the other day, but first we want to talk about how I am. I got a procedure done on my neck back here. They basically went in and shot a whole bunch of junk in there that I don't even know what it is, between a couple of my spinal column segments. The reason they did this is because I have cartilage that's deteriorating in my neck. And it has been causing me all sorts of issues with my hands and my arms. And this is the second time they've had to do this. First time they did it was before the Cobra got here, and I had high hopes that once it was done, that I would feel much better. It didn't last long. This one's lasting a little bit longer, but every once in a while I get a little tingling in my hand. Best way to describe it is if you ever knock your elbow on something sharp or hard, like a steel frame, you get all sorts of little pins and needles shooting down your arm all the way to your fingertips. It's commonly referred to as a Charlie horse. When I get those, it's constant, doesn't go away until it wants to. And it starts up at my shoulder, works all the way down to my fingertips, and hurts like it hurts like something to get me demonetized on YouTube. This is going up on YouTube. The reason is because I wanted to have a nice long video, and Facebook doesn't do that for me. Now, what have I been doing in my time other than going to the doctor? Well, I've been trying to stay as perfectly still as possible so the stuff that's in my shoulder actually works this time. I think my biggest mistake was that when I first got it done, I felt immediately, oh, I can go out and conquer the world. Didn't last long, trust me on that. Okay? But now I want it to. And the reason I want to is I want to get back to work on this thing, and I want to work hard. Okay? But there are other things in my life that are just equally as important as this Cobra, things I don't get paid for. One of those things is I am a Marine Corps League chaplain. That means I go around and meet old Marines who are in hospitals or hospice or sometimes at home, and I talk to them and motivate them and try to get them feeling well as best they can. I have several cases right now. One gentleman has skin cancer, and he can't walk as a surgery done to his hip. But he desperately wants to go to his meetings to be with his Marines, so I've been trying to work with him to get him to go. Another gentleman is recovering from eye surgery. He's lost almost all his vision. And I'm able to get him to go, and he loves it. I feel this is particularly important. It's part of who I am that I do this thing. One of the reasons I think I'm the chaplain, don't repeat this to anybody, is that I believe that at some point in time my wife and the previous chaplain got together and basically set me up so I could be a chaplain and learn that there are Marines out there that are actually worse than me. It's a bit humbling at times. So is suffering this kind of pain while you're trying to build the car. So where are we? That's what you want to know. I got LED taillights for this Cobra, and I got LED turn signals for the Cobra. But the turn signals are not what I expected. They only have 2 wires, which means they only have one function. That means they are more accurately running lights and not turn signals. So I still have to go back to the drawing boards, try to find something better so that this car has LED turn signals all the way around. Now I have here somewhere, trust me on that, it's a mess, I'm getting to that. I have here somewhere a electronic turn signals. This is very important to use when you're using LED turn signals. Now that the preferred method or the normal method of using LED turn signals and taillights is to just put ballast resistors in there. Not on my watch. You need to use an electronic flasher. The electronic flasher only comes on at a certain speed. This is very important to remember. So no matter how fast those LED turn signals want to light up, okay, and they can flicker really fast, and you'll come up to a regular turn signal relay. With this, or not, just stay on all the time. With this, you have an electronically controlled turn signal relay. Now, I tell you this so that you can put it in your brains and remember that should you ever come across this sort of issue on your car. You can go LEDs if you want. It's a lot better light. I prefer it, but you have to use the electronic turn signals. Now, what else have I done? I thought long and hard about the brakes. This car does not use Mustang, or this chassis, excuse me, does not use Mustang 2 brakes. It has four-wheel discs all the way around, and they are big discs. So, not knowing where they came from, because the previous owner of this car never left me any notes that I could read, I had to do some research to try to figure out what brakes they are. As near as I can figure, these brakes are some sort of Ford Motorsport brakes that were part of a kit that adapted disc brakes to an 8.8 rear axle with big brakes, and the fronts are similar in design. These are not, and I repeat, not Mustang 2 brakes. I know Mustang 2 brakes like I know my own body. Trust me, these are not Mustang 2 brakes. So what I have here is a dilemma. The dilemma is that these brakes are big. They have big calibers. They require a lot of fluid. And to get the kind of movement I want out of it, the sensitivity I want out of it, I have to go with the power master cylinder combination, which means a big master cylinder with a lot of fluid and a big power booster that's going to give me some real sensitivity to these brakes. Now, this car has an automatic transmission, which means that it's never going to engine brake like a manual one would, where you can just throw it into third gear from fourth and just let it blah, 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 blah. No, we can't do that. So what we have to do is we have to have a good set of good master cylinder and a good power boosters. So I wanted to match the brakes. Couldn't do that. So what I decided is I put my thinking cap on, which by the way I don't have with me right now. And I thought for a long time. I said, what kind of brakes could I use? Now, I went through all the Ford brakes. I didn't see any I particularly liked, because most of them are drum disc, and that's not what we want. We want disc. So, what do you use? Or rather, what did I use? I used a 1968 427 Corvette master cylinder and power booster. I don't have it yet because it's in the pipeline. It's coming from AutoZone, and the reason it's coming from AutoZone is they gave me a pretty good price on it. Okay, but that's what's coming. Once I get that, I'll be able to put the master cylinder in place, run all the lines to it, If I have to, I'm going to put a proportioning valve in there. I haven't decided yet, but I may put a manual one on the rear so I can adjust the rear so it most of the braking on the rear just doesn't lock up. If you understand what I'm saying, I'm going to set it up so you can actually turn that valve, that proportioning valve, on the rear so that it gets 25%, the fronts get 75%, because we want the fronts to do the majority of the braking. Now, having said all that, it's not here. I do, however, have the aluminum plate for, and I'm looking for it by the way, the front of the driver's side footwell. And it's going to go on, I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to polish it, but it's going to go on in place of the regular steel plates that you normally get with the CMC Cobra, the Fiber Fab Cobra, or the Street Piece Cobra. And it's going to take the entire front. This is good, because one of the things it's going to do is going to provide support for the steering column support bearing, the master cylinder, of course. It's going to tie this front plate to the frame using that piece of angle iron on the inside of the footwell, and it's going to attach also to the pedal cluster. Remember, I'm using roughly a 1988 or 93 pedal cluster with this, and I have had it out there. Probably have to drill a few new holes, but that's not a problem for me, and I'm going to have to weld it at some point in time to the steering column support brace, which is also the hinge post of the body, which is right back there. All the junk's on top of it. Now, the reason I chose the 427 Corvette, 1968 427 Corvette brakes is because they are the biggest brakes that you could ever get on a Corvette, as far as I know. There may be bigger ones out there, but the question is how does the master cylinder and the booster line up? Well, this is my master cylinder, this is my booster. Now some of them are like this. Not what I want, because I don't want it sticking up through the fender. I don't want it hanging down like this, because then it's going to be an issue with the header. So I wanted one that was relatively straight. Booster, master cylinder, pedal cluster, all in line. This is going to give me a nice pedal movement, or the pedal advantage is going to be right where I want it. Okay, I've done this a lot. One of the biggest mistakes we had with the 34 Coupe is that when we originally set it up, we set it up for manual brakes and not power brakes. Power brakes have a different pivot point on Fords than manual brakes, and because of that, people thought they were spongy. That's how I'm going to avoid it. I'm going to have a nice pivot point up high, nice pedal movement, nice arc through there. It's going to be in a straight line. It's going to push like it's supposed to push. And this is part of the decision-making process I had to go through, because I don't have Mustang 2 brakes on the front and Mustang 2 drums on the rear. But that's basically where I'm at. I have been working on setting things up. I'm pretty close to where I can actually carve out a chunk. Now, once I've carved out a chunk of this, the brake chunk, which is basically been the brake hump for me, because I didn't know what I was dealing with. Okay. Once I get past the brake hump, things are going to start moving a lot faster. Brake hump, then comes body on, are electrics on and radiator in. Electrics meaning the battery, the electrical harness. I can knock out the electrical harness even though I don't know it in 2 days. The reason being, besides being a Marine, I was an aircraft electrician, avionics man, and this is my bread and butter. And add to that the fact that I've designed a few harnesses for classic motor carriages, Cobra being one of them. So I know what I have to do to get this all to work. Now once that's all done, we can start talking about putting the body on. I have a couple things I got to do to the body. I have to open up the hood scoop. I have to open up all the light positions. Now that I got the LED turn lights, I can put them into place, set them up, let them become part of the body, and they can stay like that until it's time to paint the car. That comes after the brakes. It's yeah, I know what it sounds like. It sounds like it's a mess. It's actually not that far from that thing being on here. Just have a couple of details I've been working on that I need to get done. Now, one of the things I'm going to be doing shortly, I got to put the headers on this, and I got to start running the battery cables. Now, the owner of this car has given me the choice, his choice, not mine, but his choice, to have the battery in the trunk. Now, I'm fine with that. I've done that before and had good results with it. One of the purposes of putting the battery in the trunk rather than next to the engine is it gets it out of the engine compartment, which means that the weight of the battery on the passenger side and the back is going to help balance the car. Now we know this because of Frank and Buzzy. Who are Frank and Buzzy? Well, Frank was the owner of a 427 side oiler CMC car, and Buzzy was his friend that worked for Eastern Airlines, and they actually lived in Miami. Well, Frank and Buzzy got scales out and they measured the car on all four wheels. They positioned it and they figured out the balance of all four corners so that they could put, they had a 50-50 cross, okay, so that all four wheels had the same exact amount of weight on them. That's what Frank and Buzzy did for me. They taught me a lot about setting this car up, this chassis. I don't get to share that with everybody, but I've referred to Frank and Buzzy's car before they completed, when they actually took it out, as the world's biggest go-kart, because Frank and Buzzy took it out with just the engine, 2 seats, 80 pounds of weight, lead weights on the back of the engine, or back of the frame on one side, okay, where the battery was going to be on this car, and they drove it around Miami like that. No headlights, no taillights, no brake lights, just a bare car, and I've shown you guys pictures of it in the past. They drove it like that. It was scary. It was so scary, in fact, that because it had 2 huge 4-barrel carburetors on it, Frank decided that he was going to disconnect one of the linkages and only run off the front one. It was that quick. Eventually, I'm sure they hooked it up and they had a blast with it. Frank and Buzzy did a lot of stuff. By the way, Bandit's right underneath the camera, so if it moves or jumps, that's Bandit bumping it. Drove it around Miami. It was a fantastic car. They were 2 of my favorite customers because I always used to go and visit them. And for some reason, they kept getting extra parts from classic motor carriages. They got extra wiring harnesses, they got extra gauges, they got extra seat upholstery, and I would go visit it to see what extras they had gotten and made some trades so that I could get some of my guys the parts they needed and that Frank and Buzzy had. They also did their complete fiberglass underpinnings. That's the front cockpit liner, the rear cockpit liner, all the engine liners, that's the front and rear. He did all these in aluminum. Remember I said that Buzzy was a mechanic for Eastern Airlines. He's actually a sheet metal mechanic. And when you open the hood on Frank and Buzzy's car, it looked like this thing was 100% real, 100% fabricated out of aluminum, and you could tell. Except, of course, if you knew it was a classic 40 pages car. So, how long has this been? No problem. I can go for a little bit more. I'm not going to do that with this car. We're going to do what we can. I still have a lot of stuff to do. I'm feeling much better now. I want you to know that. Feeling better has really brightened up the way I feel, because I have been hurting a lot lately, and it really hurts mostly when I sleep. And I can't, when my arms start to tense up when I sleep and I get these issues, it can be really painful, and I haven't gotten the sleep I could have had. I tend to fall asleep during the afternoon because I get so tired from the amount of sleep I don't get in. I'm also going to start working at night. Right now it's roughly, and check my phone, it's 6 o'clock. I told you I'd have one out today, I didn't tell you when. But it's 6 o'clock, and I'm going to be getting this thing uploaded to YouTube and posted on Facebook as soon as I can. Things I got coming up. I'm going to try to turn this engine over, which means I got to pull all the plugs out of it. Got to spray it with some lubricant. I'm going to use something light and misty, like 3-in-1 or something like that. So, and I promised the owner I'd do that so that he knows the engine still turns, which is very important to both of us. Okay. Also, I got to start running the battery cables. I got to work on getting the finals done on these brake hoses. I'm not too sure I'll be able to use the brake hoses or with it. I might have to get some longer ones. These are all things that when you deviate from the manual, you have to overcome. The deviations from the manual are what, besides my pain, but the deviations from the manual are the things that have been coming up the most and frustrating me the most, other than the fact that I'm having trouble with my right hand and my right arm, or my left hand and my left arm. My right hand's fine, but my left is something else. I'm pretty much ambidextrous with tools. After 50 years of working on Shelbys and Cobras and GT350s and GT500s and all sorts of Mustangs over the years, I've become ambidextrous, which means that I can use either hand to drill or to take a wrench off and stuff like that. I'm not a one-arm mechanic by any means. Sometimes I wish I was, but I gotta have both of my hands to do this. And I'm doing better now. So, forgot to say it in the beginning. I'm gonna say it. Hello, Cobra fans, and this is Mike, over and out. See you next time. Bye. Oh, okay.